Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. My name is Janine Donnelly. I am the Manager of Webinars for IBM Systems Magazine, and I will be the moderator for today's event. Today's webinar, Mainframe Console Management in the Digital World, is sponsored by BMC Software. Our featured speakers today are Jay Lipovich and Paul Spicer. Jay is Principal Product Manager for Mainframe Solutions Optimization at BMC. Jay has responsibility for systems management and MLC cost management solutions. Paul is a lead product manager for BMC's Z Solutions Optimization products and is focused on MainView automation products and intelligent capping. Paul has over 30 years of experience working with IBM mainframe systems, with over 25 years building and managing systems and management solutions in roles spanning software development and product management. Today, Jay and Paul will share how you can eliminate multiple consoles and optimize your IPL. We also have special guests who will share their real-world experience with console management. With our introduction complete, Jay, I will turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you, Janine. Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to discuss a topic that we hear is of growing concern for customers because it touches all of the four key aspects of mainframe IT, that is performance, cost, risk, and skills. As Janine mentioned, I'm joined by Paul Spicer, who is responsible for BMC's mainframe automation and console management strategy. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here and looking forward to discussing this technology today.
Excellent. And as Janine also mentioned, we have some special guests. So with us today are two gentlemen from Liberty Mutual Insurance. Jerry Nisbet is Director, Application Environments, and Tim Daly is the Director of Support Operations. And later on in the webinar, they're going to share some of their experiences with console management and automation. So what we'd like to do is we're going to start at a 30,000-foot level and drop very quickly into a steep descent so we can get into the details of console management and the benefits. I don't know if it will be surprising to you, but when we share some of this information and some of these numbers with customers, it's a little bit of a shock sometimes. The stakes for IT support of digital engagement are really high. In a survey of CIOs in October of 2016, the KPMG noted that 67% of CEOs believe that the next 3 years will be more critical for their industry than the previous 50 years. So when you think about whatever type of business or services your organization's engaged in, think about the journey you've been on for the last 50 years, which just happens to be about the life of the modern mainframe currently, 50 years plus, and think about how much things could change in the next 2 or 3 years. The other interesting statistic is that 75% of the Standard & Poor's 500 will be replaced in 10 years. So some companies won't be there as a result of that.
Yeah, in fact, Jay, we're seeing that digital engagement is really changing IT itself.
Well, we are seeing that, Paul, and some of the data that focuses more on the IT role gives us some of this information. So 70% of businesses are going to rely on processes that are designed to change or shift constantly starting this year. We know that consumer expectations or customer expectations are extremely high. 75% of online customers expect help in 5 minutes or less. And a survey was done of high-performing IT teams, and one of the characteristics was that they have 200 times more frequent code deployments. So think about your environment. think about all of the factors that go along with code deployments. Most importantly, sufficient capacity, the cost of running it, risk of not satisfying customers when the deployment rolls out, and then gaining market share or remaining competitive in your particular market. So 200 times more activity in code deployments and changes.
Yeah, that's right, Jay, and we're seeing some very specific impacts in mainframe IT, and I think, that was very revealing when you look at our 2016 annual mainframe research.
It was, Paul. If you look, as Paul referenced, BMC conducts annual mainframe research each year. We've conducted it for 11 years, and we'll be launching this year's survey in June or thereabouts for the 12th year. One of the factors that we looked at from last year's survey was we looked at companies, you might call them companies who really rely on mainframes. These are companies and organizations who see the mainframe growing. 91% of these companies forecast capacity growth for the mainframe over the next 24 months. And so we asked questions about the impact of digital on their organization, and this is what they said. Nearly 4 out of 5 see increasing transaction volumes. 3/4 of them see increasing data volumes. And maybe the two that are most risky, 2/3 say they see increasing volatility and unpredictability in their workloads, and 2/3 are seeing faster application changes as businesses and organizations try to keep up with what the market needs and what customers are demanding.
Yeah, and Jay, I meet with a lot of customers, traveling around the world and talking in different industries, and I continue to hear concerns about shrinking mainframe population skills. How is that having a real impact on IT?
We asked some questions about that, and we also looked at some market data. So the first one, we took a look at, if you will, the number of MIPS per full-time employee just within the mainframe environment. And as you can see from the chart, over the last 10 years, the number of MIPS per technician has quadrupled. So they're now being asked to manage much more. At the same time, in our survey, we asked, given that there's a skills issue, how long does it take to train new mainframe technicians so that they can become skilled? And as you can see from the chart on the bottom there, if you look at 2 to 4 years and 5 to 7 years, you've got something like 65%, 2/3 of the respondents who say it's going to take quite a while to replace mainframe skills. So the net of all of this is the volume or the scale of what they're having to manage has increased dramatically. We hear constant stories about scope changing. We were in a briefing in our briefing center in Houston, and we were asking people about their roles, and one of the attendees said, well, I used to be a CICS systems programmer, and then they decided I should also handle MQ, and now I'm also doing capacity planning. So we see the scope of responsibilities getting broader, while people leave, and the people that had a lot of knowledge, and as they leave, it takes time to try to replenish those skills. So if we look at all of the impacts on mainframe IT, we looked at transaction volumes and unpredictability. We looked at the customer demands. We understand the change in staff. We talked a little bit about the data growth, but it's not just the volume of data, it's the type of data. So everything you do now that you do interactively, digitally, most of that has to be captured by the company, whether it's depositing a check by taking a picture of the check and transmitting it. All of those objects have to be maintained and saved, and it's new type of data and new types of challenges. And one of the biggest challenges is that a lot of this increase in activity isn't necessarily generating more revenue. So maybe the simplest example that I've seen has to do with package tracking. So when you ship something or you order something and you want to make sure that the gift you bought gets there on time, or the new piece of technology you're excited about, when's it going to get here, you may go on your mobile device and track the status multiple times a day. And all of that activity impacts the systems, while at the same time, the amount of money that they get for shipping that package doesn't change. So those are substantial challenges. And with all of those factors hammering IT, it's not surprising that operations is feeling some special pressure as well. Isn't that true, Paul?
Yes, Jay. Operations are really feeling the pressure. They're on the hook for making sure the business gets the 24/7 availability it demands, but at the same time, they're getting squeezed hard to keep reducing the cost. And of course, they need to do all of that, without introducing new risk to the mainframe and all the applications that run on it. And if that's not hard enough, as you said, some of the people that they rely on the most, are making plans to head for the golf course or the beach, and they're having to bring in less experienced people to replace them. So that means we really are seeing increased requirements for automation to help manage that chaos and complexity that's causing by all of this. So I think the annual survey cited automation in several areas, didn't it?
It did. It's interesting when we look across the broad survey and we start seeing how much automation is appearing. So while cost is a number one priority, most organizations acknowledge that availability is a top priority. And if availability concerns aren't being met, it may be the top priority. So when we asked how organizations were addressing availability needs, automation was the number two approach that they selected. When we look at what executives of the executive respondents to the survey had to say, they say that automation is the number 5 mainframe priority. And investing in automation is the number 3 approach that executives feel will help them address the skills issue. So overall, we're seeing automation as the drumbeat. And I think the answer then, Paul, would be how do we help organizations implement more intelligent automation to address their concerns?
Right, exactly. So to address these challenges, you really need to have intelligent, proactive automation. And BMC's intelligent automation spans 4 areas to provide you with that capability. So first of all, we've got event management using MainView Auto Operator. This provides powerful rule-based automation that lets you suppress or respond messages, as well as providing alert management and notification capability. Rules-based automation means there's a lot less Rex code for your automation team to write and manage. And this is important, and it's something I hear a lot from the customers that I talk to. They don't really have the desire or the manpower to manage large amounts of automation code anymore. So the next area is the ability to manage the application components, or objects, as we call them here. This includes started tasks such as kicks and IMS regions and databases, and also the USS processes that go along with them. And this is all about making sure they're started and stopped in the correct dependency sequence, and that everything that's supposed to be running is running. It's often referred to as state management, and it's provided in our case by BMC's Total Object Manager component of Auto Operator. Another area is subsystem management, and this is where BMC has specialized solutions that allow KICS, IMS, and MQ systems programmers to manage their own subsystem-specific automation using native event mechanisms such as MQ event queues or the KICS transient data queue. And then the final area and the focus for this webinar is console management, and this is provided by BMC's MainView console management product.
So, Paul, let's start by maybe giving an overview definition of what console management is.
Right. We can do that. So Mainview Console Management provides capability in two main areas. It allows you to consolidate and automate system consoles, and it also provides secure access to the hardware management consoles to allow true end-to-end management of your environment. So we're going to spend the rest of our time looking at how console management functionality can help you improve application availability by speeding up your IPLs, how it can help meet SLAs by quickly diagnosing and fixing problems, and reduce the cost of your hardware and facilities by modernizing your command center, and empower employees with collaborative problem-solving capability. And of course, while doing all these things, we also need to help reduce risk with secure access and audit logging. So we see these as all critical success factors to businesses being able to succeed in today's highly competitive digital world.
Okay, Paul, so let's look in more detail on each of these areas, and let's start with availability, which is a top concern. So how does console management enhance operational availability?
Right, yeah, availability is at the top of everyone's mind, and for good reason. We've all been focusing on this for a really long time, but now it's especially important with the demands placed on it, on the mainframe, with the 24/7 always-on nature of digital business. So in particular, I want to talk about IPLs and how they affect availability. Whether they're planned or unplanned, applications are either down or running with limited capacity when you're IPL. And the longer it takes to get the system back up and all of its applications up and running, the longer they're not available and the longer you're at risk. So, what we see is, with these growing transaction volumes and unpredictable workload patterns, that window for IPL is getting smaller and the systems are getting more complex. And then, to make it even harder, you're probably trying to do all this with less staff as well. And even a small mistake made during IPL can mean having to start over, causing another IPL and further elongating your downtime. So this is really a prime area for automation. So automation is going to respond immediately to system prompts. There'll be no more delays while operators are busy doing something else or trying to figure out which console they need to respond to, how they need to respond to it. Perhaps they have to go and refer to run books or other operational documentation, all adding more time. And our customers typically see this area as being one of the biggest potentials for saving time with automation. The other thing, automation is always working off a preset plan. So it ensures the correct responses will always be made and the system won't need to be IPL'd again to fix a problem. Hopefully this doesn't happen very often with manual IPLs today, but you only need to have it happen once, and it's not a good thing. So automation, is a good way to reduce that risk. Now you can also define automation to help handle switching to disaster recovery paths during emergency situations. Again, another way of reducing risk. And the other key part for faster IPLs is an effective transition between your off-board automation and your on-board automation. BMC's automation products definitely take care of that. So in summary, automation will make for faster IPLs and also be able to do it without making mistakes.
So fast, accurate, mistake-free IPLs sounds like something that all IT groups would want. Maybe if you can explain a little more about the mechanics of how this works.
Yes, let's take a closer look at what we just talked about and sort of drill in and see how it works. So by leveraging console management, object management, and event management, you can really get true end-to-end capability, which is going to simplify and streamline IPLs. So to start the process, the operator would simply select an action in console management. We call it like a one-button IPL to start the ball rolling. That then is going to signal onboard automation, such as auto operator, to start the orderly process of shutting down all the started tasks and processes. Of course, we can also work with other vendors' automation tools if you aren't using auto operator. Then, when that's complete, console management is going to detect that onboard automation is terminated, and it will continue with terminating the LPAR by issuing commands such as the ZEOD command, varying off the LPAR XCF connection, and then finally deactivating the LPAR itself. And then when the LPAR is down, console management will access the hardware management console and issue the command to activate the LPAR and then will correctly respond to all the prompts along the way. And then when the LPAR starts, it's going to auto-load and start the onboard automation, which in turn is going to start that orderly startup of all the started tasks and processes that are needed for the applications. The nice thing is during this time, console management is able to see all of the IPL and NIP messages, and it's going to make sure that things are proceeding correctly along the way. So the great thing about the automation is it can make it really easy to do rolling or cascading IPLs by making them much more efficiently, as one can just automatically follow the previous one. And they're all going to run much quicker, and they're all going to be error-free. And just looking at some of our customers, we've seen them save over 70% of their IPL time doing this. 50% is perhaps more common, and that translates into somewhere around 7 to 18 minutes saved per IPL. And that can add up to a lot of time saving and a lot of improved application uptime, when you factor into how many LPARs you have and how often you'd like to IPL them. And actually, we've seen it. You might actually be able to IPL them more often than perhaps you're restricted to today because of the time that it currently takes.
So this isn't just theory. As Paul referenced, we've seen customers achieving some substantial results. One was a major financial services company. You can see their environment. It's not small, 3 data centers, 90 LPARs. Compliance in the financial services industry is a major concern and a challenge. And they felt the pressure of change windows. We talked about the growing increase in application code changes. They feel the change window pressure as well. They put in MainView Console Management. They reduced their IPL time by about 50%. They figured the benefit to the business was about $1.3 million a year. And some benefits that are hard to put a dollar on was the secure access, the secure HMC access and control access that helped them meet some of the compliance concerns, but cover some of the risk concerns that the organization had. And as I said, there are financial benefits to that. They're difficult to calculate, but every organization recognizes what some of the security and risk concerns are. So availability is essentially, you think about it being the one side of the coin for what IT delivers for the business. The flip side is the quality of service or the service levels that they have to deliver to meet customer demands. And so Paul, automation isn't limited to just IPLs. It can help address the service level concerns as well, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Reducing risk is important to everyone, and certainly MainView Console Management can help with that too. So as I just mentioned, onboard automation doesn't see the early IPL and NIP messages as it isn't running at that early stage. And there are also lots of console messages that onboard automation doesn't suppress or automate, and that the operations staff are going to need to review and then, if necessary, take action on them. And this can be a big problem for operators. Messages scroll by very quickly, especially at IPL time. And it's an even bigger problem as operators have more systems to manage and receiving distractions from other sources, such as phones, instant messages, and things like that. Another challenge we see is continuous management of data centers during emergency situations. Maybe a hurricane is forecast to impact where your data center is located, and you need to continue operations remotely. This actually happened with the BMC data center a few years ago, when a hurricane threatened Houston. So, MainView Console Management, because it's continuously monitoring systems, even during shutdown and startup, it can really help in this area. It runs on a Linux server, so it's available even when the mainframe systems aren't. On the client side, the viewer is an applet. There's no client software to be installed. So it gives you the ability to use any laptop or PC to manage your environment from anywhere. You just point the server, point your laptop at the server, provide your credentials, and you're immediately and safely connected to your consoles and can manage them from wherever you are. Another key feature of console management is it allows you to view messages that would have scrolled off a normal console. Messages from as far back as weeks ago can be scrolled on or searched on, and you can either trigger on those messages to create automated actions. Mainview console management operators can also create events, meaning that your enterprise event manager can still receive mainframe events even when onboard monitoring and automation is not available. So from our BMC survey, cost continues to be a top concern, and everyone is also trying to reduce the complexity of the environment. A lot of focus tends to be around saving MLC cost, but there obviously are many other costs, such as hardware and facilities. And we're going to take a look at how Mainview Console Management can help with that. But first, we have a polling question.
When we were working on this webinar, we thought about all of the various customers of large size and small size. And so we want to ask this polling question of the attendees. Let's see how many consoles you have. So the polling question is available in the panel. When you make your selection, remember to hit the Submit button. And we'll do this for about 25 seconds, and then we'll share the results with everyone.
Okay, yeah, Jay, I talk to a lot of customers, as I said, and it's kind of interesting, you talk to them to see, the number of LPARs and how they vary so much. I've talked to quite a few people with well over 100 LPARs, but, it can be all the way down to just a few. And, even when we look at people using the product, the experience we get is it pretty much reflects that. We've got people managing with over 100 down to just a few. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how our respondents are going to answer this question today. It'll be very, very interesting.
It will be. The poll has ended. For those of you who shared your results, we'll tabulate those, and in just a minute we'll share them. Frequently, we look at the wall of monitors and the challenges that people face. Some companies have addressed it. Others are still looking for solutions to it. So if we look at the results, you can see that in the polling panel. 1 to 5 consoles, the largest percentage, although it's spread pretty much across here, but 30% have 1 to 5. About a quarter, 22%, 6 to 10. If we get more than 10, then we're 45%. Almost half the people have more than 10, with nearly 20% having more than 40. So that's a substantial environment. It's one of the things that Mainview Console Management is designed to help us address.
Yeah, that's interesting information. Yeah, that's good. Okay, well, let's take a look at how it can help. Just go to the next slide. So here are some before and after pictures of the command center for the same company. And you can easily see, just by quickly looking at those pictures, there's a big difference. On the left, we see a typical mainframe operation setup. There's ZOS consoles, fixed locations. They're running on dedicated PCs and monitors. Kind of remind you of a 1970s thing, looking at that picture on the left. Obviously, the operators aren't trying to constantly monitor all those consoles, but they're going to need to interact with them pretty regularly, and of course during IPLs. In this scenario on the left-hand side, users have to go to the proper PC, find its keyboard, find its mouse, get the right session, and then enter the right commands. So all kind of time-consuming. These sessions are also pretty static. They can't be moved to another PC very easily for disaster recovery or for a fire drill. It requires quite some considerable intervention. And of course, somewhere in amongst all those consoles are the hardware management consoles that need to be navigated during the IPL process, to do routine things such as reset, clear, load, commands like that. All of this hardware clearly takes up a lot of floor space and has high demands on power and cooling. And also, you've got to license PC software on all those machines as well. On the right-hand side, we see, like I said, the same data center with console management running. And initially, obviously, the most obvious thing is significantly smaller floor space. So significantly less hardware, and obviously that results in lower cooling, less power costs. And also, we can manage about 100 consoles from a single Linux server, so there's also considerably less software costs involved as well, with that after picture.
So the story we have to share with the cost consolidation message actually is kind of fun. It is BMC software. So about 6 years ago, we were looking for a solution to simplify console management. We found the solution and implemented it, and as we say now, we liked the product so much that we bought it. So we acquired the console management technology because we'd seen it in operation. So we recognized cost savings of almost $500,000 annually. We manage everything remotely. We reduced the floor space. We replaced 100 terminals. You saw the pictures that in the last slide. That was BMC before and after. We avoided actually having to add additional staff as we scaled out what we do. So disaster recovery planning, which is a major concern for us, in the event of a disaster, we need all of our systems functioning. In case a customer has a problem with some of our software, we need to be able to access our systems to be able to address what the concerns might be. We have done some data center moves. We do hardware upgrades fairly frequently. We've been able to reduce the time and the labor. It's interesting. We do a lot of IPLs because of the nature of our development. So we do about 100 IPLs per week. And those all go smoothly because we've got console management doing it. So this is a case of we eat our own cooking, and we find that it's really good cooking too. So Paul, in the opening, we saw some of the scale and scope impacts of skills. So that's a topic I think you've discussed with customers as well. And what have you heard, and what do you have to offer about the challenges and solutions?
Yeah, so everyone's been talking about skills shortages for years, but as you pointed out earlier, this is now getting to the point where it's getting very real. Not so long ago, I was talking to a customer, and he told me that he was expecting half his team to retire in the next 5 years, which is pretty scary thought. And I've heard others with very, very similar stories. So it really is becoming reality. The other thing, is everyone's having to do more with less. There's more systems, they're more complex, and there's connections into everything across the enterprise. And while you're trying to manage all of these, what we're often seeing is that your skilled people, also busy trying to train new hires on how to respond as well. People are also managing multiple data centers. Maybe they're in different countries, different time zones, and they're having to deal with all these challenges. And really the only effective way to handle all of this is to take advantage of automation to make it easier to manage all those consoles. So how can console management help address these challenges? Well, quite simply, by consolidating multiple ZOS consoles into a single desktop using a structured viewer kind of capability, regardless of where the systems are located. So here you can see how multiple consoles are displayed in that main window pane area with any priority messages in the top pane. So this allows someone to quickly see what's happening and provides the ability to launch into separate console windows if they need to drill down into an individual system. The other nice thing is you can also scroll back and search for message content in the viewer, which makes it much easier to manage a system, especially in a busy environment. So since console management is web-based and portable, operations can easily share expertise. They can share sessions, they can cross-manage activity based on their current availability, and we have some of our customers using it this way to manage their multiple worldwide data centers, using a follow-the-sun operations model with handing off operations to different areas using this kind of technology. So peer review is another useful feature that helps if you've got less experienced operations staff. So you can have more experienced operator review another one's command input before it's actually submitted. So this can help avoid accidentally submitting incorrect commands and risking your systems. It also provides a great training opportunity for that less experienced person. So the product also tracks commands issued by each user, so you have full visibility to who's doing what, not just for audit purposes, but also for training purposes. And then, lastly, you can perform console automation. We have a panel-based rules engine in the product, which makes it very easy to create automation, and that can free up your operations staff to focus on the higher value tasks.
So as I mentioned at the start of the webinar, we're very pleased to have Jerry Nesbitt and Tim Daly from Liberty Mutual Insurance here with us, and they're going to share some of what they've experienced, and it's always interesting to hear from the environments where they've wrestled with some of these challenges and succeeded. So Jerry and Tim, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Jay.
Yeah, thank you, Jay.
So to start with, Jerry, maybe if you could describe your mainframe environment and the key Liberty Mutual insurance services that you support on the mainframe.
Yeah, so we're Liberty Mutual, headquartered in Boston, Massachusetts. We're a property and casualty insurer. We do commercial insurance, life, financial applications. On our mainframes, we kind of support a lot of those things. We're the system of the record for many of these supporting applications. We have about, from a size perspective, we have 8 mainframes across 3 domestic data centers that are on the East Coast, in the middle of the country, and on the West Coast, and we're managing about 30 LPARs today across those data centers.
Great. It's a substantial amount of processing power, and certainly sound like critical applications for the business. So how many technical staff do you have doing console management?
Jay, today we have about 20 staff managing the console operations on a 7 by 24-hour basis. And what we do is we ensure there's staff in at least 2 data centers per shift, for both primary and backup. And we actually monitor the mainframes 24 sessions plus the AMCs in one screen, so through this product.
Okay, great. So maybe we could review what are the challenges that caused you to look for a capacity management, console management solution for you?
Yeah, so this is Jerry. So back in the 2007-2008 timeframe, we were doing a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and one of the acquisitions that we worked with, we needed to quickly train operators on console automations for that environment, and we were losing staff. They were kind of posting out. So as you mentioned earlier, Jay, we looked at prior to BNC buying that company that supplied console operations, we actually acquired that and used that to connect operators at one of our domestic data centers with this acquisition, so that we could, train people real time, cover, in the case of people getting sick, that type of thing. It just sped up our operational conversion or merger, if you will, for that environment.
Okay, so if you could summarize, maybe what are the top 2 or 3 features that your teams found particularly valuable?
Jay, I'll jump in here. Probably most is because we've had a lot of acquisitions, is the standardization of how we use the consoles, and then auditability. The 2-person consent for IPLs is really, we haven't had an operator error in years. So, and then as well as mobility, any site can be managed, or any environment can be managed from any data center.
Well, the real bottom line question, I'm sure for Liberty Mutual and for anybody else looking at this is, what do you think the benefits have been through the use of a console management and automation approach?
So this is Jerry. So for me, it's been the stability, the consistency, the auditability that the product has brought to our operation. Right? As you guys have mentioned a little bit earlier, the IPLs are quicker, right? Our maintenance windows are always compressed. It's allowed us to do quicker IPLs, so we get our business systems back up and available for our customers. The other one that's really been big is the whole message suppression, right? We all know DOS can generate millions of lines of messages, right, in a couple of seconds. A lot of those are, not necessarily, needed. Not needed is not the right word, but you know what I mean. So message suppression has been a big piece of this as well. So we hone down to the messages that we want, and we get rid of the ones that we're not really too interested in. Tim, do you want to add anything to that?
I think what it's allowed us to do is, we're obviously under staffing pressures, and we've been able to reduce staff by 40% over the past few years. So that's been a real benefit, and just the quicker IPLs and the less, just nothing against the operators, but just the less human error involved. We've just really eliminated that from the operation, which has been huge. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, Jerry and Tim, thank you both. It's really helpful, as I said, for attendees to hear from somebody who's wrestled with the alligators, if you will, and come out of the swamp alive. For those webinar attendees, if you have questions for Jerry and Tim, again, you can submit them on the Q&A panel, and we'll take what questions we have time for at the end of the webinar. So thank you again. And now, Paul, they mentioned it when they talked about it, so let's turn to that other concern, and that's risk.
Yep, okay. So we all know security is important, and I think everyone knows by now the mainframe isn't exempt from hacking. So clearly with a product that's accessing the hardware management console, allowing employees the ability to access it, system consoles from anywhere, security is especially important to reduce risk. And we totally understand that, and it's been built into the product, from the bottom up. So we know you take security obviously very seriously, and therefore we provide several levels of security. So first of all, access to product is secured using existing corporate authentication solutions such as RACF, ACF2, or Top Secret. We also support RSA tokens and access card, PKI-based security. So you can do multi-factor authentication, which is becoming a requirement on the mainframe these days. All the sessions are encrypted, as you'd expect, using transport layer security, and we support both TLS 1.1 and 1.2. And then, as I've already mentioned, we have audit log capability that tracks who's signed onto the system and what actions they took while they were using the product. So you have a lot of visibility. And I think it's fair to say, all in all, you actually have greater security using console management than you would if you were accessing the consoles without it. So I think that brings us to our next polling question.
So we have another polling question that we offer for you. As Paul's talked about, it's possible to approach console management in a lot of different ways. Just the native capabilities and looking at the thousands of messages, homegrown solution, or vendor products. So on the polling panel, you can see the choices. If you would select the choice there, and I'll just remind you to please hit submit, and we can record it. It's interesting to look at the various ways that companies have tried to address the challenge of console management, and we've talked with some who've worked at building some of their own homegrown tools with scripts and with a lot of sweat and blood. They've been able to address some of their concerns using a solution of their own. Now, then they have to maintain it and keep it up to date with things that are changing. So we have the poll results. It's really interesting, Paul. Half of the attendees are using some vendor solution. The remaining are either doing homegrown or using the native capabilities to do console management. So with that, it should be in a consideration for everyone, regardless of how they're doing it or what their size is. So, Paul, maybe if you could summarize the console management capabilities and benefits.
Yes, sure. So to wrap up, we've talked about how console management can help you be ready to meet the demands of today's digital world. We've shown how it can help you meet requirements for 24/7 availability and at the same time reducing risk, not just for service level agreements, but also for security exposure. And we've also talked about how it can make a big difference when it comes to reducing the cost and complexity, and how it can help you manage your systems even as some of your more experienced staff are retiring and you're bringing on less experienced people. So I guess I will.
So what we wanted to do was share just a higher level view very quickly. MainView Console Management is focused on solving this challenge for operations. On the other hand, the MainView systems management capabilities, which include monitoring capabilities, storage management, capacity management, batch optimization, intelligent capping, and so on, are built to be intelligent, intuitive, and cost-effective, because just as for console management, these are the concerns that we hear from organizations. We believe as a strategic approach that simplifying the complex is the best way to help customers succeed in supporting their digital growth and their company's concerns. We have one last piece of data to share. This is from a survey by Tech Validate. They're a third party that do surveys of customers and opinions. And as you can see, we did a study of MainView monitoring customers and how they compared MainView to other solutions when they were deciding what to use. MainView helps customers detect problems sooner, solve problems faster, reduce cost, improve productivity, and the customers are very happy with it. So if you'd like more information, we invite you to go to bmc.com, MainView Automation. If you have specific questions you'd like to ask us directly, the email for jlipovich at bmc.com or Paul Spicer at bmc.com, you can contact us as well. So at this point, Janine, we'd like to open up for questions on the Q&A panel.
All right, great. Jay, the first one is kind of three-parter, so I'll kind of get you started here. I'll review all three. Where does MVCM run? Is it an LPAR by itself, or is it part of MainView Auto Operator?
Okay, this is Paul. I'll take that. So it actually runs on a Linux partition, so it doesn't run on ZOS itself. So it's not running on LPAR, and it's not actually part of Auto Operator. It obviously integrates tightly with it, but they're not actually running in the same environment. And the advantage of running this on Linux is that when systems are IPL'd, it's still available, so it can see what's going on and make sure everything's happening properly.
Okay, Paul. Does it handle anything other than ZOS?
Yes. We also provide out-of-the-box capability for ZVM and also Unix and Linux syslog. So yeah, most of the popular things.
Okay. Another question. Do you recommend running multiple or redundant Linux servers, and does that imply multiple software licenses?
That's a good question. It would depend really on the environment. Certainly having a backup capability would certainly help, although we don't typically see too many problems with it. But yeah, certainly if you needed to re-IPL or reboot one of those servers, it would make sense. And from a software licensing standpoint, that's probably more of a question for the sales organization. But we certainly would work out those sort of things.
Okay. At some point, we must have referenced web-based. So the question was, what does it connect to? So if that's too cryptic, we can move on to the next one.
I mean, it connects to when we have on that Linux box. There's a server running on there, and it just connects to that and works with the product. So it's pretty straightforward.
Okay. How does console management does console management require me to write scripts?
No. So basically, with console management, we provide what we call forms-based rules. So basically, they're just panels where you fill in the blanks, and that's going to cover most scenarios. You can do things like create an alert, send it to the viewer. You can send an email, based on a message. You can open a problem ticket, send events to event managers. Those kinds of things. We do also have the ability to create like a rules definition language and create your own scripts. So if you've got something more complex or particularly custom that you need to do, you have that ability using the programming language. But for the basic stuff, no, you can use the fill in the blanks panel-based rules.
Okay. Does MVCM work with other vendor automation software, or would you need to convert all mainframe automation to BMC?
Well, we'd certainly like you to convert all mainframe automation to BMC, but no, you don't have to. As I say, we have obviously tight integration with our own stuff, but it can also work with other stuff. It triggers off of console messages, so you and other automation does as well. So through that console and triggering off messages and doing automation, it works just fine with other automation products. And I guess on the other side of that, we can also integrate with other IT service management tools. I mean, obviously we can open tickets with things like Remedy, our own product, but it can also integrate with other systems as well.
Okay. We've got some acronyms here, so bear with me. Some recent Z13 maintenance introduced the ability for the OSA ICCs to use SSL/TLS. Does MVCM exploit this new feature for the connection between itself and the OSA?
We certainly use TLS and SSL for communicating all the sessions to the consoles. Specifically about the Z13 new capability, I'd have to get back to whoever that was. But I mean, certainly security and is of high importance to us, and we do exploit it where we need to.
Okay. Can you clarify this? What is the console management product's actual product name?
It's MainView Console Management for Z Enterprise, and it actually comprises a couple of components, the console automation piece and the secure HMC piece, which is the part that connects to the HMC securely. But the overall name is MainView Console Management for Z Enterprise.
Okay. Does it only connect to the HMC, or does it also connect to the ICC OSA?
That one I'd have to get back to on. I mean, certainly we connect to the HMC. I would need to get back on that specific question.
Okay. New question. What type of consoles do you support? So ICC, SMCS, etc.
Well, we support the ZOS console, ZVM console. I think this is the question some of the question we had earlier.
Okay.
The hardware management console, obviously, and the Unix and Linux syslogs.
Got it. Does it provide any monitoring capability?
Yes, it does, and we didn't really talk that much about that in today's session. But no, it does have a dashboard capability that you can provide overall at-a-glance status of systems, like red, yellow, green kind of status. We also gather metrics from the hardware management console, status of things like coupling facility, CPC level indicators such as power consumption, heat load, and those kinds of things. So yeah, there is some monitoring capability in there.
Okay. What if we only have a few LPARs? can council management still help?
Oh, yes. We have, as I mentioned earlier, we do have, some very big customers, maybe lots of LPARs, and we also have quite a few with very small number of LPARs, and they're looking to save on other things. I mean, there's hardware cost savings. It makes it easier to manage with fewer skilled people. Basically they're taking advantage of all of the aspects of the product. They still all apply. It isn't just for customers with like hundreds of LPARs for sure.
Okay, I'm afraid that's all we have time for today. I want to thank our attendees for submitting your thoughtful questions. And just know, if we did not get to your question today, someone will follow up with you via email to get you an answer. And I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. I especially want to thank Jay and Paul for sharing their expertise with us today, as well as our special guests, Jerry and Tim from Liberty Mutual Insurance. That concludes our webinar. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great day.